Do you know what are the biggest nuclear weapons ever detonated? Today we'll count down the 5 most powerful bombs in history, terrifying reminders of humanity's destructive power. Number 5. Castle Romeo, on March 27, 1954. The United States conducted this test at Bikini Atoll in the Pacific Ocean as part of Operation Castle. Romeo was a thermonuclear device with a yield of 11 megatons. That's more than 700 times the bomb dropped on Hiroshima. The bomb was larger than scientists had predicted because of the way its lithium fuel reacted. When it detonated, a gigantic fireball rose into the sky, forming a mushroom cloud that could be seen hundreds of kilometers away. The shockwave from the explosion traveled across the lagoon, flattening everything in its path. The fallout from Castle Romeo was carried far beyond the test site, contaminating parts of the Pacific and raising international concern about America's testing program. At that time, nuclear weapons were still new, and the sheer scale of Romeo shocked the world. It became a grim reminder that thermonuclear bombs had reached a level of destruction far beyond conventional warfare. Number 4. Castle Yankee. Just weeks after Romeo, the US carried out another test in May 1954. Castle Yankee had a yield of 13.5 megatons, making it the second most powerful detonation in the Castle series. The explosion created a towering mushroom cloud that pierced the stratosphere. Like Romeo, Yankee spread radioactive fallout across the Pacific Ocean. The fallout was so severe that it forced the evacuation of nearby islands and contaminated the ocean for months. Castle Yankee symbolized the rapid pace of the nuclear arms race. In less than a decade after World War II, bombs had grown from the kiloton range of Hiroshima and Nagasaki to multi-megaton monsters. For many observers, Yankee reinforced a terrifying realization. If such weapons were ever used in war, entire nations could be wiped out in a single strike. International outrage followed, as news of the fallout spread to the public. Yankee, along with Bravo and Romeo, played a central role in sparking worldwide protests against nuclear testing and in shaping the growing anti-nuclear movement of the 1950s. Number 3. Castle Bravo. This is perhaps the most infamous US nuclear test ever. On March 1, 1954, at Bikini Atoll, scientists expected a yield of 6 megatons. Instead, Bravo exploded with 15 megatons, 2.5 times greater than predicted. The reason was a miscalculation involving lithium-7, a fuel they believed would be inert. Instead, it contributed massively to the explosion. The result was catastrophic. The fireball glowed brighter than the sun, and the mushroom cloud rose 40 kilometers into the sky. But the worst consequence was the fallout. Radioactive ash, described as snow, fell on nearby islands. Inhabitants were exposed to dangerous radiation levels, and many suffered long-term health effects. Even worse, a Japanese fishing boat, the Lucky Dragon, No. 5, was caught in the fallout zone. Its crew was severely irradiated and one sailor later died. Castle Bravo sparked a major diplomatic crisis between the US and Japan, and the images of burned fishermen and contaminated islands spread worldwide. More than just a test, Bravo became a symbol of nuclear recklessness. It highlighted how little scientists understood about the full consequences of their own creations, and it remains one of the darkest chapters in nuclear history. Number 2. Test number 219. On December 24, 1962, the Soviet Union detonated this device at Novaya Zemlya, a remote Arctic testing site. The yield was an incredible 24.2 megatons, far more powerful than any American test. When the bomb exploded, the fireball lit up the frozen Arctic landscape. The shockwave shattered windows over 1,000 kilometers away. Even at such a remote location, the sheer force of the blast was undeniable. Test 219 was part of a series of massive Soviet tests during the early 1960s, designed to show the world that the USSR was ahead in the arms race. It came just months after the Cuban Missile Crisis, at the peak of Cold War tensions. By demonstrating that they could produce bombs of this size, the Soviets were sending a clear political message. They possessed unparalleled destructive capability. Although far less famous than Tsar Bomba, Test 219 is still among the most powerful detonations in human history, and a chilling reminder of how close the world came to a loud nuclear war. Number 1. Tsar Bomba, the king of bombs. On October 30, 1961, the Soviet Union tested the most powerful nuclear weapon ever built, with a yield of 50 megatons. It remains unmatched in history. The bomb was so large it had to be specially modified to fit inside a bomber aircraft. When it was released over Novaya Zemlya, the explosion created a fireball 8 kilometers wide. The mushroom cloud rose 60 kilometers high, reaching the edge of space. Windows shattered as far as Norway and Finland. To put this into perspective, Tsar Bomba was more than 3,000 times more powerful than the Hiroshima bomb. In fact, it was deliberately scaled down. The original design was for 100 megatons, but even the Soviets feared the environmental consequences of such a blast. The shockwave from Tsar Bomba circled the Earth 3 times. No other weapon in human history has come close to this level of destructive force. It was not practical as a military weapon, far too big to be deployed, but it was a political statement. It told the world that the Soviet Union had the biggest bomb ever conceived. Tsar Bomba is remembered not only as a feat of engineering but also as a symbol of the insanity of the arms race. It stands as a chilling reminder of what humanity is capable of and why such weapons must never be used in war. These were the 5 most powerful nuclear explosions ever created. Together, they reshaped history, fueled global fear, and pushed the world closer to nuclear limits. Today, they remain reminders of both human ingenuity and human recklessness. Do you think the world has truly learned its lesson from the nuclear age? Let us know in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories from history and science.